Self. All right, we're here with another phenomenal episode, guys, of the Entrepreneur Speaker Series. Today on the Thursday, I'm really excited to bring in another phenomenal guest. And this time it's going to be special, guys. Our guest is tuning in all the way from Australia, down under. And we have a topic prepared for you that many of you have been asking about. So I'm very excited to get started, and I want to thank you once again for tuning in every single Thursday, because this is where the value happens. This is where the magic lives and grows, especially in a year like 2020 where there's so much uncertainty. We're trying to remain consistent and always bring you the best, our loyal followers. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and let me give you an introduction to our guest today, Karen Clark, also known as AKA the Quantum Queen. And we will get into that in a second. She'll explain you what that means. But Karen actually helps entrepreneurs to grow their business through result and laser focused coaching, creating those breakthroughs and to remove the challenges and hold them that have been holding them back, right? And Karen is going to explain you how the quantum mechanics and how the quantum realm plays a big part of that. So first and foremost, Karen, thank you so much for tuning in. And how are you doing today?
Hi, Rob. It's my pleasure to be here. I am doing really well, even though it's 1:15 a.m.
And we appreciate you for staying up and to spend some time with our audiences here today. So we're really grateful for you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So the Quantum Queen from Australia, maybe it would be interesting to start off right there. Can you give us the background story of how you were dubbed the Quantum Queen in Australia? We're all very curious.
Well, I coach the realm of transformation, mindset transformation. And so I was, sorry, I've got some noise going on. I was working with the media queen, and we were coming up with another branding name. And because I work in the quantum field, we decided that the Quantum Queen would be an apt, AKA.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And you know, I feel that the title of queen, it totally fits you. You got the posture, you got the energy, the vibrations of a queen. So I think that's very suitable.
Thank you.
And Karen, before we dive into the subject today, before you were an entrepreneur, before you were a coach, can we take you back a little bit into memory lane? I always love to little bit demonstrate that you weren't always the person you were today, right? We're in a constant state of evolution. So can we take you back maybe, you know, a couple of quantum leaps, you know, ago? Can we take you back, and what is it that you originally got started with, and how did you transition into entrepreneurship and coaching?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I grew up with a dad and a mum who were in business. And I was very fortunate. My dad gave me one of the best gifts that he could have given me. He said to me when I was a child, Karen, when you grow up, you can do whatever you want. You can have your own business, or you can go to university and get a degree as a chemist and then have your own pharmacy or whatever you want. And that gave me the belief in myself that I could be an entrepreneur. And so when I did grow up, I actually wanted to be a scientist when I was growing up. And I did start in the area of science. I did my New Zealand Certificate of Science because I'm actually from New Zealand, which is across the Tasman from Australia.
Yes.
And I worked in the Victoria University for a while, and I worked with students who were doing their science degree, and I worked as a laboratory technician. And then I went into business when I was in my early 20s. I started my own business, first in the beauty industry and then in the automotive industry. And since then, I have had businesses in property development, in forex trading, and several other areas.
Wow, very exciting. So you were instilled with the belief that you could achieve anything you want by your parents, or more specifically, by your dad. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I used to go to work with my dad from about 9 years old, and he taught me many basic principles of running a business. And another gift he gave me was to understand what service is. So he instilled in me the importance of treating the customer as someone who is very, very special, and always to give the best service that you could and be the best that you could be.
Beautiful. And Karen, so with that in mind, how important do you think that belief play a role into the human potential, right? Into what we can achieve as human beings, every individual. How important do you think that belief plays a part of that?
100%. So one of my first businesses I started, which I had for 25 years, and many of the clients who came from day one are still going when we closed in 25 years later. And that business we started, I never doubted that it would be successful because my dad instilled that in me. There was no way that that wasn't going to be successful. So I did it. So therefore, I created the way the business was going to be in my head. I saw how we would create this boutique automotive business that specialised in English sports and executive cars like Jaguar, Daimler, MG, Triumph, Rover. And it was a pristine boutique that had white walls and shiny floors, and people loved coming in, and the mechanics wore white overalls. And it had beautiful framed prints on the wall, and it was in the early 80s. In those days, the majority of workshops were dirty, smelly, greasy places. And then I took action to make sure that that business was successful, because there is a formula for success, and it goes like this. Our thoughts create our feelings and emotions, which create the results that which create the action that we take, which create our results.
Wow. So let me real quick reiterate that. So our thoughts, what we're thinking, produces an emotion. The emotion, therefore, good or bad, it will produce an action, and that action leads into a certain type of result.
Correct.
Wow. Sorry, go ahead.
So if you wake up feeling terrible in the morning, and you decide that you feel awful, and you decide that you're going to stay in bed with the covers over your head, you have done exactly that. You've woken up, you've felt terrible, you've taken a particular action, and it's caused the result that you've stayed in bed and done nothing with your covers over your head, right?
So Karen, then let's emphasize on that point, because then the opposite question that I would have for you is, and I think we can all relate, just waking up one day and not feeling at our best, right? We don't always control that. That just happens. So what could we do? Like, if you would have to advise our audiences that may be feeling this way today, we don't know, but what would you say, what can we do if we can make a decision, a choice, and we're not feeling at our best today? What could we do to change the circumstances, to change the result?
That's a really good question. So it's really important to understand that our thoughts are a measurable vibrational energy. And when you're feeling not so good, your thoughts are of a low vibrational energy. And what you want to do is raise the vibration of your thoughts. And one of the ways to do that is to give gratitude. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrations. Gratitude and love are two of the highest energetic vibrations on the planet. So you can give gratitude. You can think about the things that you are grateful, the things that are good in your life. But here's the secret. You can also give gratitude for something that hasn't yet happened. And so the principles we use is to start with a very, very clear outcome, destination, where you want to end up, where you want to be in life. And when you do that and create a specific crystal clear vision of how you would like your life to be, and then you refer to it, because that's a much higher vibration, right? Then you refer to that regularly. If you're not feeling so great, and you read that written vision that you've made of the life that you would love, it raises your vibration.
Yeah.
And then you give gratitude for it as if it's already happened. It can't help but be yours.
Yes, I love that. And Karen, there's I believe there's two types of people. There's the and I call them the left brainers and the right brainers. Right, the left brainers, they think in terms of systems and tools and strategies, and the right brainers, they are the creative types. And generally, the right brainers, they appeal more to emotion and how something feels. Now, from what I heard you say, would it be correct if I could specify my dream life? Let's say I write down on a piece of paper how I would love my life to be, right? My absolute dream life and dream circumstances. And let's say I write that down in the form of an affirmation. And then tomorrow I wake up and I'm just not feeling at my best. And I want to change my vibrations. I want to change how I feel, because now I understand that how I feel, it's the actions that I will take. So would it be correct to say that an affirmation of something that has not happened yet, but something that you deeply desire, just by reading it, it can change and alternate your circumstances?
Yes, it can. However, there's more you can do than just reading it.
Okay,
So,
can you elaborate on that?
yes. So it's about actually believing that it's going to happen. So to believe that it's going to happen, one has to become that person living that life that you've created, that you would love. One has to imagine that you are living that life. So reading it is a part of it. Going around your everyday motions, everything you do, driving your car, doing your washing, laundry, whatever it is, you try and imagine you're that person doing those things as if it's that person living the life that you love.
Wow. And I just imagine that some of the listeners today, or people who are going to be watching the episode today, they might be thinking, well, that's easier said than done, because Karen is the quantum queen, right? But how does that apply to people who may not have achieved their full potential today, or people that are maybe not even clear on if they want to continue the path or the journey that they're currently pursuing? What would you say those people could do today, or like between now and the rest of the year, to kind of alter that direction?
I think the first point is to get more than just a written affirmation. What I do with people is I go through and do a really deep dive to work out what it is that vision statement would be. And there are 4 domains in our lives that we create our results. There's our health, there's our relationships, there's our business, career, or vocation, And there's our time and money freedom, our freedom, both time and money. And the fifth area is our spirituality, which we won't go into. However, it's intermingled and intertwined between them all. And so I ask people to think about each one of those domains and ask, what do I want more of? What do I want less of in my health? That's the question, because in order to manifest, you need both a desire and a grateful expectation. So we start with getting really, really clear and detailed. These vision statements, they're not a sentence or two. They're often pages. And they describe every detail of what it is that you would love in that life. So we look at what would I want more of and what would I want less of in those areas. And then we keep asking the question, what would I love? However, most people limit that answer. They limit it to what they think they know how, or they limit it to what society has given them beliefs that they think they can achieve. And so I really work with people to say, come on, just drop all those limiting beliefs and imagine that I've waved a magic wand and I've said, you know, you can have anything you want, just like my dad said to me. Anything you would love to achieve. Think big, think the big picture. Don't limit it to what you know how. Don't limit it to what you can work out how to achieve. Look at, if I waved the magic wand, what would that then be? If I gave you all the money and the education and the qualifications and the clients or whatever it is that would give you that life that you would love in that area, you know, if it's your health and you want to lose weight, for example, I say to people, okay, what would be your ideal weight? And if you were the most amazing, healthy person, how would that look? You know, describe it to me. And so it's about getting really specific and really detailed. And by the time we've gone through this with people, they are feeling so elated, so motivated, so inspired, because they really believe that it's possible. And that's what it's about. It's about creating that vision that people really believe is possible. And then when you get up not feeling so great, it's important to understand that, why am I not feeling like that? What are the thoughts that are going on that have caused me not to feel like that? And to recognize that they're probably coming from that part of our brain that is there to keep us surviving. It beats our heart when we're asleep, it breathes us when we're asleep, and it also stops us from being the best version that we can. It's the one that I can call the itty bitty chitty committee.
Chitty committee, that's funny.
Chitty.
Yeah.
And it's the one that brings up the doubt. It's the one that brings up the fear. And when we're not feeling so great, usually those thoughts are going on. And it's important to look at those thoughts and then come back to the vision and say, no, I know what you're up to. I'm not interested in those thoughts. And be really committed and really make the decision that this is the life I've chosen. And that's the difference. It's making the commitment. When you do that vision, the difference is then saying, I'm doing this. This is the life I want. I'm doing this. And the decision and the commitment is so important.
Yeah, very, very powerful, Karen. And guys, I have experienced this myself over and over in my life. I have spent a tremendous amount of time, a great deal of effort and work into designing a new character, right? That's how I like to call it. Like, you can absolutely control the circumstances in your life if you make a decision in who you need to be. And just for the fact that you are not the person capable of living that particular life today, that's okay. But as long as you believe you can, then you will start taking actions towards becoming that person capable of living the life. So I found that really profound, Karen, and I'm glad that that you're attesting to this, that is an actual thing, and it's happening for so many people who are going through that process. Now, I'm curious, Karen, what are some of those profound moments for you, right? Back in time, we talked a little bit about how you got into entrepreneurship and how your dad was such a big influence in your life in instilling the belief. Now, what were some of the highlights for you when you were going through this process that you had these light bulb moments, or maybe those significant moments that you remember so clearly by taking the action, and then all of a sudden it happened? Would you care to share some of those moments for you?
Yes. So with the business I was referring to, we set up the building, and as I said to you, we made it look all beautiful. And we created an introductory letter on beautiful paper. It looked like it was handwritten. I created the card, which had the logo of the Jaguar and Daimler and MV all intertwined. And I stapled the card onto the top right side of the letter. Then I folded it up neatly so that the card was bright red and the letter was a nice soft grey. And I popped it inside a zip-top plastic bag. And then I walked around every day the streets in Auckland, in this area that we had this workshop. And I found those cars. I found those classic Mark II Jaguars and Daimlers and MGs and Triumphs and all of those beautiful classic cars. And I popped it under the windscreen wiper, you know? And that's how we got started, because many of our one of my light bulb moments was when someone brought their car in and we would be working on it and we'd have to open the glove box. And in there would be that letter many years later.
Wow.
Because our clients had held on to that introductory letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I realized, actually, not then, but when I became a coach, I realized that I'd done a lot of these key points and actions that I now teach. I'd done them instinctively while I was growing my businesses and being an entrepreneur.
You may have not realized it back then, you're saying, but today, because you're more aware, you start to see the patterns.
Yeah, and another one that I can share, which wasn't such a great experience, however, there was a huge learning, and it was also before I was a coach. It was when I was a property developer. And when I started property development, the New Zealand property market was booming. And so I said to a business partner, let's do some property development. And I'm a high risk taker, as many entrepreneurs are. And that's why often we, like you say, we rebuild ourselves many times. And so I said, let's leverage the property that I was living in, my home, to the max. So it was almost a freehold home, that means I almost owed no money on it. And it was in a very, very good area in Auckland. So I said, let's leverage it, borrow 80% against it, and put that into different property developments. And so at the time, you could buy a property with a house on it that was large enough to slice off, subdivide, and create another title. And you could sell that title then for 90% of what you paid for the whole property.
Wow.
And you'd still be left, And so we started about 4 different properties. and we were in different stages of the subdivisions. Most of them, however, we paid for all the subdividing. We had the new title. We had all the extra costs involved with that and all the extra borrowings when the market crashed. That was the previous global financial crisis. And what happened was literally every property dropped in value by the equity that we had in the property. And they were lower, if not the same or lower than what we owed the bank. And so we were starting to get into a bind. We had businesses, and those businesses as well were starting to, they certainly weren't growing as we were in the global financial crisis. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember the last global financial crisis.
I am, Karen. I may look youthful, but I have some years behind me.
So you know what one I'm talking about. And
Yes.
by the way, I've lived through three now. So the first one was not long after we started our automotive business, actually, in 1987. And that was the first one we managed to get through okay, and we survived. Then there was the second one I was talking about, which was in, help me out here, what year was it? 2007.
Yes, correct.
2008, yeah. Isn't that interesting? So anyway, we had a bit of a line of credit that took us through for about a year, 18 months. And then it was about 18 months after the start of that GFC that I came to Australia, actually. This was all in New Zealand. I was still living there. I came to Australia and I was attending a investment and business boot camp with some entrepreneurs. And that's one of the things that's helped me, by the way, is that I have put a lot of time and money into training myself in personal development, property and business development through the last 15 or more years. And always in those programs, there have been a content of the mindset, the transformation, and the entrepreneurship from that perspective. And I always was very, very excited by that part of it. And that's why I became a coach. So anyway, I was at this boot camp and they were going on about how you get what you focus on.
But
And
you
that was the
focus on
lesson
expense,
today.
right?
Yeah, you get what you focus on. That was their word, you get what you focus on. And after the day, I got back to my room and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm focusing. I mean, literally, I was waking up every morning stressed about what if the worst happens. And this is what we do. We terrorize ourselves with our imagination, which is one of our 6 mental faculties that I also teach about. And so I was waking up thinking about what if the bank decides to tell us to pay down some of our debt? What if they find out that we're stressed financially and they tell us that we have to pay back our loans? There is no way that we can do it. And then I will lose everything. And that was the thoughts that were going on. And I was feeling really bad. And I realized that's what was happening. And of course, there's a universal law, as you said. It's called the law of non-resistance, which means that what you resist persists, which is, once again, what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so part of the learnings was ask a different question. The questions you ask directly relate to the quality of your life, or the quality of your life directly relates to the quality of the questions you ask.
Yeah.
And so I asked of the universe, what question should I ask? And I came up the next day with a question, which was, how do I create another 200,000 or 300,000? Now, for someone in the situation that we were in, that was a huge question.
Yeah.
We couldn't borrow any more money,
And your brain probably could not comprehend the big gap from where you were to how to raise $300,000.
Yeah, but the important thing is that before that, I'd been asking questions like, how am I going to make it through? How are we going to pay our current costs? And that's not an empowering question. That's not the question that I wanted the answer to, because I didn't just want to get through, right?
Yeah.
So then I slept on that one, and the next morning I had an answer. And the answer was create a really professional portfolio, which we didn't have physically, of all the properties we had, make it look beautiful, look for another lender, get away from that lender you're with, because the lender that we were with was one of the lenders that had foreclosed on all the farmers in New Zealand in the previous GFC. So they had a reputation for being very ruthless. That was one of the things that was worrying me. And so I just thought, so that was the answer. It was like, you have to find another lender. And so I went back to New Zealand and I spoke to my partner and I said, this is what we've got to do. We've got to create the most professional looking portfolio of our position, a little bit of creative accounting, and we've got to try and we've got to refinance.
Yeah.
So we did that. He said yes. He was the numbers man. He was the one with the part of the brain on the other side to me. And so he had all the spreadsheets and all the cash flows and all of that. And so we put everything together. And then I asked everybody I knew who was involved in property, who do you know who is a good lender, who's prepared to think outside the square and is happy to work with trusts, because we had all our properties in trusts and a lot of banks don't like those either. And so I got an answer. Somebody said to me, yes, I've got a wonderful bank manager. Whenever I want money, I just ring him up and he says, yes.
Yeah.
So I called that mobile manager up and he came and had a meeting with us. And I said to him, we don't just want to refinance enough to pay back the banks that we're with. We want you to give us the maximum you will give us on each property so that we have a line of credit and we can do renovations and things and improve the quality of the properties. So he said, okay, I'll go away and have a look at it and I'll get back to you. Now, the important thing here is what I believe and what I asked for. And so in a few days, he came back to us and he said, yes, we will refinance the whole lot, because we said to him, we'll give you the whole lot. It was over $3 million worth of borrowings. So we're not talking about a tiny amount of money. And he came back to us, and when he gave us each property and what they would lend us on it, and I added it all up, you won't believe it.
300,000.
The total was, between 200,000 and 300,000.
Yeah.
And so what happened from there was, as soon as each property, so we used that line of credit, by the way, to pay our costs. So we were using borrowed money to pay for the borrowed money. And all the other costs to get through, right? And then as soon as the market changed and each property came up in value enough for us to sell and get out of it, we did. We didn't make a lot of money out of any of them. However,
you didn't lose either. You created your own solution.
And there was one property that we actually made 300,000 on as well.
Oh, wow. So powerful, Karen. So it sounds to me that if we can boil this down, right, through that entire process, start believing that you can change the circumstances and you will start seeing. Because I think this was a clear example of you recognize that you were focusing too much on the problem and what you focus on expands. So instead, change your questions, right? Therefore, change your creative action taking, so to speak, and therefore your actions will produce a different result.
Yeah. These universal laws are so powerful. They are invisible. We can't see them. They're the same as the laws of gravity and the laws of thermodynamics. We believe in those. We know those.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand the universal laws as well.
Yeah.
You know, another example of that law of non-resistance, if I may share,
Yeah, absolutely.
here's another completely different example. Is I was a motorcyclist,
Wow.
and my brother and I used to go on tours together with some of his friends. And one day we were going out on a tour, and he decided to give me a bit of coaching because he was more experienced and better rider than I was. And he said to me,
like a good brother does.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. And he said to me, okay, Karen, we're going out on this back road where there's a lot of windy curves and corners. He said, if you come around the corner and there's something in your way, you know how when you're riding a motorcycle, you're riding as fast as you can, come around a blind corner, and there's not a lot of time to make any decisions.
Yeah.
And he said, if you come around and there's like a boulder or a tree or something in front of you, he said, don't look at the obstacle. Look for how you're going to get around it. Look for the gap. Because if you look at the obstacle, you'll almost certainly hit it. And that is another example of the law of non-resistance. You get what you focus on.
Yeah.
Always look for the gap. When you have a challenge, look for the gap. Look for the way to get around it.
Absolutely. Wow, this is so good, guys. So I think this is a golden lesson that if there's something in your life or in the business currently that it's not working for you, or maybe you're not satisfied with the current circumstances. So what I'm clearly hearing from Karen is that instead of focusing on the problem, like what is the problem, it will actually intensify most of the times. But look for solutions and try to think around the problem, because it may, some other thoughts may enter your mind that are actually solving the problem. So I think this is a very profound lesson, Karen, because how often do we see people around constantly reiterating the problem? This is not working, this is not working, this is not working. But that's the exact problem, because you reiterate the problem, you're not focused on the solution. So would you say that whatever challenge you're currently encountering in life, and especially in 2020, right? So many people around the world are affected by COVID-19, for example. They have lost their jobs, maybe their business was shut down, they were forced to work from home. Instead of focusing on the problems that come with COVID, what are the benefits of the new circumstances? How can you pivot and take advantage of the new reality?
Yes, that's so true. And there's also, it's important to understand that there's always a good in every situation.
Yeah.
We may not have asked for a particular situation to happen, but if one looks for the good in it, what is the good in the situation? Even if it's simply the learning, the lesson that we get from it, that is huge. It will be a gift in the end.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, this is so profound. Karen, I would like to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about, so in your coaching business, right? You're helping a lots and lots of people causing breakthroughs. Now, what is the number one common challenge that you see that most entrepreneurs are struggling with? I'm sure that there's a common pattern. Certainly in my businesses, I see this all the time. So what have you noticed that most of the people are currently struggling with, and what is the solution to that?
So I find that the single most common problem is some kind of fear.
Fear. Okay,
Fear.
very powerful. Yes.
I always ask a question before I do a strategy session, or a series of questions. And one of my questions is, what do you think is the real problem that's holding you back? And it's always a form of fear. So it could be fear of failure, it could be fear of what people will say, it could be fear of what happens if I am successful, it could be fear of or self-doubt, which is also a part of fear. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't have enough of
limiting
something.
beliefs, right? Yeah.
I don't have enough of something to be able to carry that through. The imposter syndrome comes up.
Imposter
I
syndrome.
say that I'm an expert in something, but they're better than me, and they're better than me, and I'm actually an imposter.
So if and that's a common theme among a lot of people. I see this all the time. Now, what would you say as a great coach, Karen? Like, if you could address those people listening or maybe viewing this episode at some later time, what would you say to those people that are maybe experiencing some of those symptoms? Like, what could they do right now to change those circumstances? Maybe to get rid of those limiting beliefs or even the imposter syndrome, as you so finely said.
Yes. I think it's important to understand that fear is our friend. You're never going to stop fear. Every human being experiences fear. I'm sure you do at times, Rob, and have done many, many times.
Yeah.
And so when we experience fear, it's a signal. It's actually a signal that we're on the growing edge of becoming something more. As soon as we decide we want to become something more, often we feel fear. And so it's a signal.
Wow.
And so if we can learn to befriend our fear and know that it's helping us to move forward, and then, I've got another really good example of fear where I never believed I could be fearful in that situation. And yet my heart was pounding so hard, I felt like it was going to come out of my chest. And I just realized that fear is coming from our thoughts, It's simply our thoughts. We terrorize ourselves with our thoughts, and it's not real. Often what we fear never happens. So it's important to really get that relationship with fear, and when we do feel it, recognize it and welcome it, and then say, okay, and come back to our vision, always coming back to what we want, what our destination is. It's just so important to have that clear, detailed destination of the life that we would love, the results that we want.
Yeah. And I have a question coming in from the audiences tuning in right now, and actually addresses, the fear problem. And first, I wanted to acknowledge that it's such a big dilemma, because on one hand we experience fear, but you just clearly explained that the reason why we're experiencing fear, because you're at the brink of another breakthrough. That's where the growth happens. So it's quite the dilemma, because you're experiencing the fear and then there's the excitement, so to speak, of something good happening. But one of the questions from the audience coming in right now is, hey Karen, is there a technique that you recommend that if you're currently experiencing fear, something that you can do right now to eliminate that fear? And like you mentioned before, to change the question. Is there a technique that you can recommend?
Yeah, there are techniques. There's things like breathing. So breathing is an absolutely wonderful technique. And I like to do the breathe into the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, and breathe out for the count of 8. It's a very, very powerful technique that can calm us down. The other thing that's really important to understand that to create different results and to be successful in your life, and by the way, success is only what you want as success. It's not what anyone else wants or you think anyone else thinks is success.
It's your own definition.
It's your own definition. It's important to understand that in order to achieve anything different, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if you feeling the fear, the answer is do the breathing, do the meditation, hook back into your vision, sit there and read it and imagine that you are the person living that vision. And it will help you to get through it. Because when you're committed to that outcome, you've made the decision that you're doing it, and you recognize and you say, no, I'm willing to be uncomfortable to get to this destination. It changes the way that you think, changes the way that you feel.
Yeah. Wow, beautifully, and so well said. So breathing is one of the great techniques that allows you to calm yourself down, but back that up with a clear vision of where you want to go. And if you can commit to that journey, then all you have to do is just get excited about it and start taking little steps moving forward into the new direction. And that's personally what I have experienced in my own life, Karen, over. So I can totally relate to that process. And fear is it's a part of being a human being, right? It's nobody is fearless. There's always this part that kicks into the back of our mind. But the point is, if you try to understand it, that is part of you, accept it, and then there's so many ways for you to go through that and say, hey, when I'm feeling fearful, in the same time I should get excited, because that's where the growth is. If I feel fear, I should feel excited, because that's where the growth is.
So true.
Wow, that's so profound. And Karen, as we're coming to the close of this interview, I wanted to know, for the people watching this, and I'm sure that there's people that are going like, wow, right? Maybe for the first time in their life, it just opened their eyes in how to deal with fear. I think fear is such a common challenge for a lot of people. If they would want to stay in touch with you, if they want to follow your work, if they want to talk to you some more about these concepts, how can our viewers find you? How can we connect with the Quantum Queen all the way over in Australia?
Well, thank you to the internet. I'm only as far away as your computer or your phone.
Yes.
So I have a page called The Quantum Queen on Facebook.
Okay.
I have a page called Quantum Leap TV on Facebook. I have my coaching page on Facebook called Kardashians and Co Coaching. So many of you will have heard of the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Okay. My surname is Clark, C-L-A-R-K. So you just replace the card with Clark and then add Ashians on the end.
Wow. All right. I think and our team will take care of the notes here today and make sure that we drop the links in there for our audiences here viewing. But that's a very funny analogy and bridge, especially here in America, where the Kardashians, whether you love them or hate them, it doesn't matter, but they're all over. So I think that's a great bridge to get connected to you, Karen. And then one more thing, Karen, and this is something that we like to do always inside our community, because the Entrepreneur Speaker Series was really founded to give back to people that are working so hard to realize their dream, right? And maybe they are stuck, maybe they are challenged in certain areas, and we want to bring amazing guests like yourself to, because if there's just one thing that stands out to them, it could change the whole journey that is ahead of them. Now, would you be willing to make a little bit of your time available, that if someone is having this desire to ask you that one question or propose to you that one area that they're currently stuck, would you be willing to make a little bit of your time available to speak to them and perhaps create that quantum leap for them, for the people in the audience?
Yes, absolutely, Rob. I have a practice of doing one or two complementary strategy sessions a week. It's part of my giving. You know, one of the universal laws
Giving
of
before you can receive.
Absolutely. And so that's what I do regularly. It usually takes an hour to an hour and a half.
Wow.
I'm very happy
Very generous.
and what we do is we do the vision statement. So I delve deep with people, and that's why I was referring to that. That's a gift.
Wow.
So I'm really happy if anyone is brave enough to reach out and accept that gift. I would be really happy to do that.
Wow. We're so grateful for you, Karen, because I personally know how incredibly powerful that is. And I think an hour and a half with somebody to discuss their future, right? To create a new identity of someone, that's incredibly profound. So guys, take advantage of this. If you are currently watching this and you feel that you are seeking for that next breakthrough in your life or in your business, right? Reach out to Karen. And Karen, how do we, if there's two guests that we can give this away, how can they claim this time with you?
So what I can do is I can give Christiana a link where they just click on and go into my calendar for that specific strategy session and book a time that works for both of us.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Online calendars, guys. I love it. So we're going to make the online calendar available to two people who are seeking to create that breakthrough, who want to take advantage of this generous gift by Karen. So we're going to take care of that, Karen. And the one more thing, the one thing that I always love to do before we close out today's episode, it's, would you be able to give our audiences some advice, right? We're currently close to the end of October, and entrepreneurship and life in general is an exciting journey. And you know, it can go slow, it can go fast, but every day is a new chance to make a difference. Now, what would you say to our audiences between now and December to still turn 2020 into their best year yet? Can you help us close out this episode, Karen?
I would say it all starts with asking yourself, what would I love? Your creative imagination is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations come. You have to willingly give to graciously receive. Ask yourself, what would I love? If I could have anything in the world, what would that be?
Wow. That is beautiful. I hope that we can clip this out and turn this into a little audio file, guys, and listen to that over and over. That was beautiful, Karen. We appreciate you so much. And for the community out there, we had a phenomenal interview today here about the power of belief. And we thank Karen Clark for tuning in and staying up at this hour of the day over in Australia. We're very grateful for you, Karen. And guys, want to make sure that you take advantage. So connect with us. Let us know if you want this. Our team will make sure that we will get you the calendar so you make that appointment. And follow Karen on her multiple pages. If you forgot how to write Karen's name, think of the Kardashians, right? You will be able to spot Karen on social media. And tune with us next week with another phenomenal guest. Same time, same place. And as always, Karen, we're so grateful for you. We appreciate you, and hopefully we can get to do this again and review and reflect back to see what other quantum leaps have happened for us in our lives. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I would love to. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Karen, and good night. Talk to you soon.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.